Hello, hello. Welcome back to Turning the Tide.
Like the beach.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much in full summer mode. Most of our area schools and
it's been beautiful. No, very low humidity.
yes, yeah. A lot of activity, a lot of planning. We've got juggling now. All the fun family times and different things to do.
Yeah, and our camps are coming up.
Camps are coming up. We're so excited. So if you're local in Mecklenburg County and you don't have anything planned for your children, please check us out at www.resilient-pathways.com and sign up for our fully funded camps. They are
free.
Yes, no charge for you, but packed full of fun activities, parties, and great social emotional support.
Yeah. And nice crafts. Kids always like those crafts and bring them home, and then they have something for their room.
And it's always kind of fun, we get so task oriented when we force ourselves to slow down and prepare for a camp. It is kind of fun to do some of these crafts with the kids, and
it's self-care. It really helps you. Therapeutic
for us. So, I follow Dr. Kim Sage. She is a clinical psychologist, and she talks a lot about childhood trauma. She talks a lot about parenting and poor parenting. And one thing that really resonated, and I felt like everyone could learn a little bit more about, is eggshell parenting. Yes. And she really talks about how that creates a very hyper-vigilant child, a very anxious child. And so anyone that might not know what an eggshell parent is, this is the parent that there's a lot of verbal abuse, punishment through shaming or name-calling, yelling and screaming as a way of gaining control. They can be very triggering, and these parents, their behaviors are emotionally dangerous behaviors, as Dr. Sage will talk about in a lot of her online. I think she does a lot on on her research, and she does a lot on TikTok as well. But I've checked out her website. She's got some really great resources. So shout out to Dr. Kim Sage, and just that eggshell parent really creates that roller coaster lifestyle for a child. Definitely keeping that child in that
like walking on eggshells.
Exactly. That's how it gained its, the kid never knows what kind of mood the parent is going to be in. It's kind of a roller coaster. There's highs and lows, and it's not consistent. Like mom or dad might be very praising today, and then tomorrow completely tear the child down and be the complete opposite of what they praised them about. So there's no consistency. It leaves a child very confused of, am I loved? Am I supported?
Right. And they're not self-regulating themselves, the parents. And maybe there's some underlying mental illness or some sort of issues that the parent's going through that they need to
definitely
take care of.
Can probably contributes back to how they were raised, the
their
kind
trauma.
of things that they've been through. So it's not like just a burst of anger. So that's kind of something too, because every parent loses their cool occasionally. This isn't just like I occasionally come home frazzled from the day and get angry, and because the milk spilled. Right. This is an ongoing behavior pattern where it's mocking. I mean, they may even destroy possessions that the child. So it's a control piece of
taking the door off your room. I remember that happening to me.
Oh.
Yeah, that was in lack of privacy. I think, from my opinion, and my background, that's how I grew up. My stepfather and my mother were very eggshellish, and I think that's where I always have to say, I'm sorry, I'm very apologetic.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, so I think that has a lot to do with the way I grew up. Like, I remember distinctly, there was a time where a neighbor was over and she hurt her foot, and I was giving her medicine, and my stepfather's like, don't drop the bottle, because back then in the 70s everything was made of glass, and because he kept saying it, I dropped it. It was like the weirdest thing, and then I got in trouble for it, and it was just like but you know, just stupid things that, you know, like my mother, you know, I like never knew but that was also, I never knew where I stood with her, what day was good, what day wasn't. But she was addictively challenged. She had alcohol issues. So, you know, that, you know, it explains it,
Right.
but it also does, when you're a child, you don't understand.
Right.
You know, you get a bad grade and you're in trouble, but the next time report cards come around and you didn't get you got the same grade or, you know, even
Right.
worse, no one's saying anything to you.
Right.
So.
And you do see when people have addictions that they're facing, there is that comorbidity piece that something else is attached to. You have an addiction, and you also sometimes have, you know, to compensate, there's some personality, there's depression, there's, you know, high anxiety. So there's a connection where you do see that it definitely does impact how someone parents on a regular basis. But one thing that is so sad about this style of parenting is that they really are creating an isolation for their child. They're kind of denying children the ability to connect with people, to connect with others. So, you know, there's that fear that for the child that they're just really controlled by the parent. And, you know, unfortunately, we have seen this so many in some of our family unity cases that we work with. We see a lot of people come to the table and we're there to address behaviors in the child, but once you start to integrate into the family, you realize that the behavior is not just, yeah, right?
All right. It's like every 3 episodes.
That the behaviors that the child are exhibiting are deeper rooted, much deeperly rooted in the family unit and how they interact with their parent.
Yeah. And
So,
I think these happen too sometimes, like when the parent doesn't do this in front of other people.
right.
You
Yes.
know, it's sort of like a hidden secret, like a family secret.
It reminds me of, do you remember the movie and the actor, I don't remember the actress, but Mommy Dearest?
Oh, yes.
No
With the
wire
hangers.
I mean, but in the limelight.
Oh, she was a famous actress.
Yes, and she was
Joan
beautiful.
Crawford. Right?
Yes,
Joan Crawford.
She was beautiful. Everything was perfect. But behind the scenes, there was a lot going on, and a lot of eggshell parenting going on. So I think that one thing, like we talk about in so many other topics, we are all about trying to break that multi-generational cycle. We are a product of our environment. We either go right or left in how we're raised. We either duplicate exactly what we see or go to the other spectrum and we're like, we're not going to be anything like that.
I catch myself all the time because that's how I was raised. I mean, literally every day was like chaos. So it's so easy. You could take all the therapy class, you know, you could take therapy class, go to a therapist, go to a life coach, whatever, and read as many books as you want, but it's like an instilled character trait.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like you are your environment, so you learned how to do this. So you have to catch yourself, and it's not easy, or maybe you might explode, and then you have to like kind of just calm down and make sure that your child knows that they're safe, because it does create an unsafe feeling for a child.
And I think that's one thing, you know, like you said, therapy, any kind of support systems that you have in place, you can retrain your behaviors. But when you're retraining, you're usually the best to exhibit new behaviors when you feel like you're in control, when things are calm. It's when something happens and it's a heightened sense and, you know, there's of alert, or, you know, the household's in a frazzled state, and we go back to what innately feels like what we're used to, how we were raised. You know, the behavior we're trying to break. So, like you said, after the fact, it's so important, if you are a parent and you're not necessarily the parent that you're eggshelling your kid, and they're living that way, but occasionally you lose control. I'm all about when I evaluate a situation and think I handled it poorly. I definitely think we should build the respect between parent and child and apologize.
Yes.
I know some people are like, I'm the adult, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But I think we have to apologize to our kids when we don't present things their best way, because that's a teaching moment.
I totally agree. You know, and I know I had this conversation with my mother, like, you know, many years ago. You know, how she used to leave me alone, and I was all by myself, and I really like kind of raised myself. And she was like, she didn't really, she defended it. And then when I brought it up another time, like a couple of years later, she's like, I already apologized to you for it. I'm like, no, you didn't apologize. But sometimes you have to leave things where they are, but you also have to learn that, you know, I know as a teacher, you know, you hear other teachers going, oh, they need a good ass whipping, you know what I mean? And that's like, that's not working for some kids, because that creates more anger inside of them. That's why they're being more, they're volatile, they're angry. So, you know, you have to realize that there is so much research out there. If you need something and you're kind of stuck in the moment, you can, you know, look for it and try to help yourself. These self-help techniques are important when you're parenting.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're going to talk about some things of ways to break the cycle here in a second, but I wanted to piggyback on what you just said, because educators are, and especially at elementary level, because we are with the kids the majority of the day, there's a little bit of changing classes and stuff. But educators mimic a lot of that home environment. You got, you know, kind of a parent, adult figure in the room overseeing. And if you are one of those educators that are like an eggshell educator, and you're yelling, and you're the person that never highlights the good, but okay, Johnny is going to cause all of us to lose recess today. And, I think we have to, you know, everything we do, we integrate education into the social emotional support and our role as parents, because that's just who we are. But I think that's something that educators do need to think about, is how you're speaking to your classes. And I can remember as a child, second grade being my favorite grade because of the support and the encouragement that teacher gave me, Mrs. Cool, and Cuhl.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm sorry, Kuhl. But she was fabulous, and then I ended up becoming a second grade teacher.
Yeah.
But I remember another teacher who wasn't directed to me, but it was just the way she ran that classroom, which was on that negative note. And you don't know how you're impacting a child. You don't know if they come from a home that has that same kind of influence. And so we're just sending that secondary messaging to them that you're not worthy, that you're not loved, that you're not, good enough, you're not cared about. So we really do have to be mindful of how we structure our classroom and how we discipline.
Right. You set the expectation. I think, for me, I always was like, a lot of people like, oh, that's because that's what they're doing at home. But as the adult, as the educator, as the leader of your classroom, you set the precedent. So I used to say, when you walk through that door, you leave everything over outside. You might talk to your parents that way. That's their business. But you're not going to talk to other people in this room that way. Like, you have to set that as your, procedures in the beginning of the year. You're going to have to reiterate it throughout the year. But as long as they know that this is that setting, then hopefully, we hope that they carry it on to their professional lives eventually.
Exactly.
That they know that, this is the way people act here. And I actually had this conversation with one of the teachers I mentor, because she said to me that her mother didn't get herself together until she had her younger sister. And then she went back to college, and she was trying to get her life together. But growing up, her mother was like, go fight that kid, down the block. Like, her mother made her violent, and she was sort of like I was when I was a kid, like, this isn't right. You kind of know. But, that you need to know that, as the parent, as the educator, like, there are a lot of people that do things like this at home, and we have to, even though it's 8 hours a day, they have a place where they can be themselves and,
feel safe.
feel safe, but they have boundaries.
Right. Definitely. definitely, and I think that, I always loved, that's what I said. I can't always keep my house neat as a pin, but my classroom was a controlled environment. And it was setting the expectations and working as a team and creating, highlighting all of the individual strengths and then finding ways to support the weaknesses of your learners. I loved being a classroom teacher, and I think that we have an opportunity as educators to continue to bring in those social emotional components that really help a child thrive when they might be in an eggshell environment at home. And so anyone out there that thinks as an educator it's not your role to be social emotional support, you're really missing out, because we have kids that come back to us to this day. The bonds, the love that we've created with those kids, and the support that they know that they have is valuable. We don't know what one statement of support, or on the flip side, what one statement of negativity might drive a child in one direction or another, or to believe something negative or positive about themselves.
Right, because I've had classrooms, like, I couldn't even give them downtime,
Right.
because they couldn't handle it. And that's not really, but you have to teach that, right? You have to, let them know that, okay, you could start it in increments, but you have to they love and thrive on routine. Kids do. They really do. They love it. They really do. And you might think, you're on them all the time, but when you meet the parents and they tell you how much the kid really loves you, and you're like, okay, but it's eye-opening, because you realize that at their house they rule the roost or do whatever they want, but they really love the fact that you're holding them accountable. It's very, you might not think that that's true, but it is. It's very true.
And summer too, you want to have summer kids to have a little downtime, but
like we talked about last podcast,
you got to have a little routine. So if you find yourself that you're like, oh my gosh, I kind of identify that I might be this verbally abusive parent, punishing through shaming and really creating a toxic home environment, what can I do to counteract that? What can I do to start to change that? Talk therapy, there's so many different types of talk therapy, and we can't express enough that this kind of behavior is abnormal parenting. It's not normal parenting. It comes from something. It comes from your childhood. It comes from your trauma, your adversity. And, sometimes it starts in your adulthood. Sometimes it goes all the way back to childhood. But I definitely feel like there's a lot of value in seeing a counselor and addressing these concerns and getting into some good talk therapy. And there's DBT therapy, which is another form of talk therapy. A counselor, once they meet with you, can certainly guide you on what's going to be best to help you make some progress. And, we talk about self-regulation all the time. That's something you can do at home.
For evaluation and journaling it, maybe even. Like evaluating what you said, and did you say the right things, and it's just, like you said before, it's just an excellent tool,
And the pausing, that taking, all right, before I react, let me pause. We do it to our kids all the time. Count to 10. I mean, really, that's simple advice, but when you give yourself, and if you think, well, 10's not enough, then count to 20. But if you give yourself a little bit of time to kind of think through how you're going to respond when, the mayonnaise is all over the floor or whatever the situation is, you create the ability to, you're giving yourself a timeout to get yourself together and really kind of figure out a way to regulate yourself and your response to that before, and then
own it. You gotta own it. I know it's hard to say you made a mistake. We're not perfect, right? And you really have to say to yourself, like we were saying about evaluating yourself, like, did I say the right thing? In anything you do in your life, I think any profession you have, parenting, your relationships with other people, you just gotta be like, did I say that right? Did it? Maybe I could have said it a different way. How am I? How do my words really affect people? And that's part of effective communication. When you're mad, you can't really talk to anybody, because then it gets like lost in translation.
It's
like
lost through emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know, like through your brain and coming out of your mouth. And I feel like those are the worst things you can. It's like you're self-sabotaging yourself, because you're not, you know, expressing yourself the right way. Maybe you had it all in your head and the way you wanted to say it, but you got angry and triggered, and it just came out the wrong way.
Yeah. And that's why I always, you know, encourage people, if it's a situation that you're going to address something and you know about it in advance, write it down, write your key points down, because it does get lost in your emotion, and when you try to just remember what you wanted to say.
Yeah.
And we're a little shorter today because, you know, this topic doesn't need to drag out anymore. It's, you know, we hope that there are not a lot of people out there that are doing this to their children. It's detrimental. Because I'm sorry to interrupt you, but they're going to mimic this behavior. Yes.
You know?
And it robs them of a secure, safe childhood. It is emotionally dangerous to put your child in a situation where they are all on this heightened sense of alert all the time, and home is not a safe, positive environment. And I think we just want to wrap up just to note that an eggshell parent is definitely not that parent that occasionally loses control and says the wrong words or curse or, you know, what is wrong with you, or we say something and then we regroup. An eggshell parent is that yo-yo parent where it is just a roller coaster ride. One day you're beautiful, the next day you're nothing, you know, one from hour to hour, or, you know, moment to moment. It's that constant sense of insecurity for a child. So it's not the occasional blow-ups.
It's going to backfire on you.
Yeah.
As they get older.
Oh, yeah.
I think so. You know, it's going to backfire. So you need to get it under control, because there are so many studies now, too, about, you know, how you were parented and how you're parenting, and, you know, are your kids going to have a relationship with you when you get older? I mean, if you weren't, you know, doing the right thing, they're just going to be like, you know, I don't really have to have a relationship with you.
Yeah.
Anymore, because I'm 18, and if I don't, you know, you did this to me, you did that to me. And, you know, I think young people this way are very into mental health. Excuse me. They use a lot of, you know, there are positive things on social media, you know, there's not just negative things. And they do understand boundaries and triggers and, you know, getting toxic people and gaslighting. They know these things are existing, and they know how to identify it. So they're, you know, they are going to make better decisions for themselves as they're getting older. And, you know, you're going to be a grandparent one day. Do you want to see your children, you know, mocking, you know, things that you did?
Right. You don't want
intimidating, you know, you know, things that you do.
And it's often easier when you see it from an outsider looking into someone else doing it, and you don't even realize that, hey, that's something that, you know, you yourself did. But you know, one other thing is that this research has shown that this kind of parenting greatly increases anxiety in children. We have seen a rise in children anxious, even post-COVID. And so then you wonder, is there a connection? We always want to say it's the isolation, but maybe there's a connection to who you've been isolated with. You know, if you are spending all your time with a parent who is not uplifting and nourishing you, they're pulling you down and degrading you, it certainly is going to impact you. So
definitely
good information. I'm glad we could talk on it a little bit. I hope everyone has a fabulous week ahead. Enjoy some of the sunshine. It's been so lovely. The weather hasn't been too hot. It's just been perfect after we've had quite a rainy season.
Rain.
I know. So anyway, well, wishing everyone a great week, and thank you for joining us.
And don't forget to reach out to us with questions, or you can do it anonymously. Reach out to us on our website. You could reach out to us through email, or social media, whatever, you know, aspect of communication you like. Please do, because we value you as our audience.
Definitely. And we are seeing an uptick in people on our website joining our mailing list, because that will be coming out in the near future. We'll be doing some quarterly newsletters and different things, and some push outs and through email. So please join our our email list and subscribe. So you can do that right on our website. Just scroll to the bottom, you'll see where that is, and certainly send us your questions, and we look forward to talking next week.
Thank you.